Welcome to Listen, Smile y No Te Rindas. Este es un podcast para hispanohablantes que quieren mejorar su comprensión auditiva del inglés de los Estados Unidos. Somos dos hermanos estadounidenses con raíces mexicanas. Soy Gabo o Gabe, aquí con mi hermano mayor Goyo o Greg.
Greetings, everyone.
On occasion, we like to pick a topic that is kind of the moment in the Spanish-speaking world and discuss it mostly in English. And of course, right now, the big topic is the Olympics in Paris. So during the conversations that we have on these types of episodes, we will try to shed light on any references or expressions that we use to help you with your English.
Hey, Greg, what's it mean to shed light on something?
Oh, Gabe, I'm so glad you asked. Shed light on something means iluminar o aclarar. And the word shed by itself means that something is coming off or falling off of something else. As in, a snake will shed its skin, or a dog will shed its fur in the summertime.
Or if you have a dog like mine, your dog sheds fur, whether it's summertime or fall or basically all the time.
Is that true?
Oh yeah.
I don't own dogs, so
yeah, she's a fur factory.
Okay, just sheds all the time. All right. Thank you for shedding light on that.
You're welcome. Well, today we wanted to talk about the Olympics. They are getting going in Paris, and which is very exciting. And everybody I know is watching them, and I'm trying to stay caught up.
Okay, well, I'm excited to talk about that. We're going to talk at first, I believe, about some general Olympic things that are not necessarily American, and then we're going to kind of transition into two American Olympians. And we'll see if you can follow along the conversation. Oyentes, we are not sheltering, as we would say in English. We are not, speaking slowly in this episode or trying to pause. We want you to hear how we talk to each other so that you can kind of test yourself. You've been listening to our other episodes. Now see if you can follow along in this type of episode. Y si te gusta escuchar nuestros episodios y si usas Android, puedes bajar nuestra app Temas, Intermediate English, gratis, de Google Play. Brindamos enlaces en nuestra página noterrindaspodcast.us a todas nuestras apps. Haz un clic en la pestaña para aplicaciones. Gracias.
Well, I've been trying to follow a couple of sort of interesting and somewhat sad stories in the Olympics. The first is about a young man from Mozambique, which is a country in East Africa. His name is Steven Sabino, and Steven Sabino is still in high school.
Wow!
And but he's been training for the Olympics as an Olympic sprinter, and his specialty was the 100 meters. And as he and the other athletes were at the starting line, he says he heard a bang. He heard a sound that sounded like the starter pistol. And he took off early and did what they call a false start. And, apparently,
are you allowed one of those or two of those? How many false starts can you have?
They used to allow those, and they found that they were slowing down the television network coverage.
Oh yeah, of course.
So they now have a zero tolerance. So if you false start once, you're out. So he was ejected. So he flew all the way to Paris and was not permitted to compete. So he was very emotional, understandably.
When you watch the replay, can you detect any sort of pop sound, or can you understand why he false started?
I couldn't hear one, but again, there are other events going on.
Okay.
And he tried to plead his case. And he tried to make an argument that, he didn't do it, to try to cheat. He literally thought he legitimately thought he heard a bang. And actually a runner from Great Britain was also disqualified in the same race, because in the next heat, when they reset, he false started. So, obviously something was going on, but, apparently slow starters learned that they could kind of try to anticipate the starting pistol and get off a bit early.
Okay.
And there were basically no consequences for trying it. And now the consequences are very severe.
Yeah, we would say they are draconian. They are draconian. They are zero patience or tolerance or flexibility. You go from 1 to 0 in one try. Wow.
Yeah. So I felt really bad, for him, just because, he was studying, for school and trying to train. So it's just a situation where, I felt bad for the guy.
Yeah. And you said there was another one where you had like a sadness.
Yeah, there are apparently 2 boxers right now, that, the one from Algeria, a lady, named Imane Khalif, and then one from, Taiwan, named Lin Yuting. And because they both tested positive for having testosterone in their system. Oh. So, they were recently reaffirmed by the Olympic Committee just very recently that they are indeed females, indeed women, but they're both boxers. And the Algerian boxer apparently hits really hard, because in the first round of her bout with an Italian boxer named Angela Carini, she just hit her with a couple of jabs in the nose, and Carini raised her hand to stop, and she went over and told the coach that she was just hit too hard and her nose hurt too much, and he tried to encourage her to at least go to the end of the round and then decide. And the Algerian boxer hit her again, and she stopped the fight. Basically, she threw in her own towel. She gave up.
Now if I may say, because I run our Twitter page, I watched this happen and unfold in the aftermath on Twitter, and just all kinds of mythology and stereotypes and lies immediately jumped out of everywhere about this Algerian boxer.
Right. Everybody was saying that this was secretly a man. And, the thing that was striking to me in looking at them, because they were forced to stand side by side for a kind of an uncomfortably long period of time while the judges figured out how they wanted to deal with this. And it just occurred to me that they were shaped almost exactly alike. Their bodies looked like, body duplicates of each other. Neither of them looked.
The Algerian's taller. Yeah.
Right. She was taller, but neither of them looked particularly masculine. Neither of them looked anything like the way a male boxer.
But on Twitter,
looks.
I'll tell you, on Twitter, they were finding photographs of the Algerian. And I don't know if it was Photoshop or, I have no idea. I did not research it, but they were particularly trying to find photos of her with short hair, so that, as if to say, see, back when he was a guy, right, he had short hair. And other people pointed out on TikTok that in Algeria, if you're transgender, that's against the law. So there could be serious consequences for that. So, this is just, it was very hurtful in the minds of those that I was watching on TikTok, that, that this political statement, people tried to take a stand on this other issue that had nothing to do with the Olympics or boxing.
Right. I felt like it was really taking away from her ability to box. And but again, it is it's very much a a politically charged topic right now, and it sort of has replaced abortion as the number one flag, between sort of the two sides, at least in the United States, the two major political sides. So it was very sad to me to see that happen, but I was very pleased to see the Olympic Committee do something quickly and reaffirm that both of these boxers are women and that they need to be allowed to compete.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking about those two things. Let's move on. Let's move on to Simone Biles. Now, as you're listening to this part of the episode, oyentes, I would like you to, I'm going to try to talk about some things about Simone Biles that will deal with both time and measurement, because those things can be cultural. Of course, the metric system is cultural because we don't use the metric system very much in our country. So I want you to feel in your own culture what some of these measurements mean. And let's just start off with an easy one. Simone Biles has been participating in Olympic level gymnastics since 2011. So she is not a recent entry to the Olympics, but she's of a certain generation. And I think, Gabe, they call her a member of the Fantastic Five or the Fantastic Four, something like that. And I have a reason for bringing that up. But next, I want to talk about her size, because she's 4'8" tall. Now, if you use meters and centimeters in your mind, saying someone is 4'8" tall means very little to you. So I will tell you that 4'8" means that she is just under 1.5 meters. And if you say that to someone in the United States as 4'8", your immediate reaction is kind of like what Gabe did, is kind of like a wow, like, oh, small, short. So that's a very short height. And I think a lot of gymnasts are small because it lowers their center of gravity. I know, for example, in football that Lionel Messi is rather short in stature, and it helps him, weave around defenders. So it makes sense to me. Now, I'm just 1 inch under what all women say they like on dating apps. From what I understand, not that I'm dating or looking to date, but this is what they say on TikTok, that, you need to be 6 foot or taller. So I'm 5'11". Okay. So I'm on the tallish side, but just so you hear what that means in American English, I'm just under 1.8 meters. So I am 0.3 meters, or roughly 1 foot and something taller than Simone Biles. That is a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot. Now, what I really appreciate about Simone Biles is that, Gabe, first of all, she won 4 gold medals this year individually. And I don't know a lot about gymnastics. I'm not a follower of gymnastics, but when you look at a history of who's been decorated by how many medals, as an American, she's by far the most successful it's ever been. When they compare her, they have to go back to like what we would call the Iron Curtain countries, or Eastern Bloc countries, to find someone who's been as successful as she has been. And it was a long time ago. It was like 25, 35 years ago or more. So she is a sensation. She is unusual. But what I would like to talk about is how she has changed the national dialogue in our country in a way that I think is very beneficial. You see, in 2021, you may remember, oyentes, that in 2020, I believe the Olympics were in Tokyo, and COVID came about in about March of that year. And so they had to delay the Olympics until 2021. Which, you can imagine as an athlete, you're training, you're trying to hit exactly your peak performance by a certain time. And then they like, nope, you're not going. And we have a little history of that in this country, because in 1980, we boycotted the Olympics because they were in the Soviet Union, and Jimmy Carter, the president at the time, pulled the athletes. So there's already this cultural memory of the strain of giving everything you got, right? Giving all your all, and then being told, oh, but never mind, it's not happening. So getting to go to the Olympics in 2021 was like a big sigh of relief, we would say in English. It was a big sigh of relief at the time. And then after participating for a little while, Simone Biles, who had done very well in 2016, she has to drop out. And it's not because she's injured. It's because of something going on in her mind, Gabe. She had something called the twisties. Apparently that's a feeling that you have when you're doing twisting motions in gymnastics. And, it's mental. It's not physical. And I'd like to give our listeners a little bit of context about that. You see, in the United States, especially coming from football, there is a huge mythology around fighting through the pain. You have to try to win no matter what. I think that's been a very American idea, especially when we were boys. If you got hurt on the ball field when you were practicing something in middle school or high school, your coach would say, you got to fight through the pain. You can play hurt. Sometimes they would say. Now, not always. They had a line they would draw. Like if you'd sprained something or broken something, they're not going to put you back in the game. But toughness was defined by, can you keep on going, even though you're hurting somewhere. And this was exemplified. Exemplified means it was the greatest example. This was exemplified in 1996 when Carrie Strug, who is another gymnast, probably also 4'8", very small young lady, was doing what they call vaulting, where they run down a runway and then they jump and flip and they have to spin in the air and then land. Well, she hurt herself on her penultimate jump, on her second to last jump. And Gabe, do you remember Bella Caroli in this? You remember the photo of him carrying her because she did the run again and landed on one foot because she had hurt her other foot and winced in pain. Winced means you go with your face and, you squint your eyes. It really hurts. And she landed on the one foot and she turned and signaled to the crowd, and Gabe, then she fell down. And Bella Caroli later on carries her to the medal ceremony. And to me, there was just no question at the time. She's got to do the next run, right? That's what Americans do. We fight through the pain. And, she was heroified. She was put on Wheaties boxes and put on television shows. It was a huge deal at the time. And then Simone Biles comes on. Simone Biles comes along many years later and says, you know what? This is not worth it. I'm going to protect my body, or I'm going to protect, my mental health. And I'm going to protect myself. It's not the most important thing just to win and then somehow, be damaged from that forever. And I think that was a very healthy thing for our country, that, mental health, especially after COVID, when so many of us were mentally off because of the confinement and the uncertainty, that was a big deal.
Well, and there was huge pressure. I remember there was a lot of pressure on her to, how can you just not compete and still be physically, you don't have any sprains or broken bones, what is this? But if you think about it, what she was describing was this feeling of uncertainty while you're in the air. And, I was watching her on the balance beam. The balance beam to me is the one that is the most terrifying.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Horrible.
And the balance beam is this long, basically like a long board that they're standing on, and it's suspended off the ground, and the potential to injure yourself is just astronomical because
it's huge, yeah,
very high because just walking, just like if I just had to walk across the balance beam,
no way.
I would fall off, and I could potentially hurt myself if I fell and hit that beam. But they're doing insane things. She was flipping, and landing. She was jumping and doing the splits. And, she lost her balance, a couple of times and was able to right herself, to bring herself back on balance. As they said it was a very veteran way of doing it. In other words, someone who had a lot of experience, but, now they're calling her the GOAT, which is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. So not the cabra, but in the sense that she's the greatest of all time. And it really makes her listening to herself, listening to her mental health needs, look really smart, because instead of her giving into the pressure in 2021 and potentially really injuring herself, she came back and won best all around.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, visit www.patreon.com/No Te Rindas podcast to see our levels of patronage.